I saw a lot of hurting kids when I was a teacher, and your heart goes out to them. Probably thousands of kids that came through my classroom. I saw that every kid has a story, and a lot of those stories are really filled with a lot of pain.
I was a student at Edison, and I saw Youth for Christ being an impact there, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I started volunteering at Youth for Christ.
I started volunteering with YFC after Carolyn gave a presentation at my church. Sometimes I feel like I've been more impacted by my volunteering than the kids I work with.
I started going to McLean High School, the Friend of Friend Club, and that's where I met Jameson.
Even my leadership kids are going through so many things like divorce and just a lot of life-changing things, and to have a person that's just a constant that they know will be there to listen and support them and encourage them. So that's what I see my role as, really.
But we can't do it alone. I mean, we just have those kids for a few hours each week, and Youth for Christ comes alongside the church, and in many ways is better positioned to be able to influence those kids than we are, and to keep them strong in the Lord, or to help develop their walk with the Lord, and even to lead kids to Christ.
There's an incredible amount of negative influence out there in our youth today. And our youth are starving for people to follow. And it's so important that the people that our youth are following are Christians.
They have no other place to go. A lot of times there's no other place to go for them to hear the gospel, or just have a safe place, or someone to pray with, or to open up with. And the big thing, it takes time for that. They're just not going to come in and just tell you everything. It takes time. You have to be faithful to showing up. Just simply showing up shows a lot to a kid.
It was always my heart to make them know that God loved them, to let them know that somebody cared. As a volunteer now, it's so nice to be able to share that directly, where that love is coming from, where that care is coming from.
If we don't help develop in our kids a sense of responsibility, a great knowledge of the Lord, a great knowledge of the Word, a great knowledge of what the challenges are that they face, if we don't turn them into leaders, then we lose a great opportunity.
People that are emulating positive values and a good role model in their life. And I know that when we build our youth into leaders, Christian leaders, that we're more apt to have a positive influence on our neighborhoods and our schools. And when that happens, that's our future that we can look forward to.
It takes a lot of energy. It does. It takes a lot. Just especially when you spend a lot of time with certain kids and you see them mess up or don't want to even talk to you sometimes. It's hard. It's difficult. It takes a lot out of you.
We recently learned from Youth for Christ that 70% of the junior high and high school students in the Fresno metropolitan area do not attend a church.
Some kids can't go to church, and their parents won't allow them to go to church. And to actually bring church to them is such an amazing thing. Kids, I try to go to church. My parents won't let me go, but for them to have a chance to meet once a week and to hear the gospel and have someone to talk to about their lives and get godly advice is absolutely amazing.
As a Youth for Christ volunteer, I take girls out for coffee at Starbucks. I help them do their homework. I help them talk about life, and we talk about Christ and how He can impact their life. Where else would I have an entree into the lives of young people?
And I started bringing pizza because Kathy said pizza brings kids. And we started our first meeting and had about 20 kids at lunchtime come. So we started communicating more with Youth for Christ, and they were, they just came in and undergirded everything we did and helped us out with training and how to train our kids. And our club quickly grew. The next semester even up to like 50 kids, and by the next year we were having 80 kids come.
Anytime you want to share God's word with somebody, it doesn't have to be this huge gospel presentation. You can just take a small moment, a little lesson or something that's going on in a kid's life, and just relate that back to the Bible.
I saw the kids at Tioga be real with each other because they were comfortable around us. It took a little bit, but they were comfortable around us. Youth for Christ was one of the first organizations that really put me in a position of leadership. Some of the leadership skills I learned at Youth for Christ actually used out of the country, leading music for a VBS in Mexico.
a role model that can be an example of what Christ is and demonstrate to them what true love is, because many of these kids, they don't have an understanding of what it is to have a loving parent, to have somebody that cares about them, somebody that's willing to listen to them, to counsel them, to help them through some of the issues that they may be facing in their day-to-day life. What Youth for Christ does for our youth, quietly, in most cases behind the scenes, is something that we need desperately in our community.
She just basically was on her own, and someone invited her to come to club, and she wasn't coming because her mother had passed away. And she said, that day she came, we just talked about hope. But she was like just back there crying, and she just found hope that day. There has been kids that have made a decision for Christ through club, and it's amazing. You know, that's what you work hard for, you know, it's for that reason. And at the same time, you see kids who don't. Kids who still like, I just don't know, but they still show up faithfully, weekly, and you get to plant that seed in their life, that when they leave school, that seed has been planted, and I believe God's gonna do something with it.
Some changes come about in kids' lives. I've seen kids come to know Christ. I've seen them come to accept responsibility and leadership and really grow. To be able to touch those kids and let them know that somebody cared for them was probably the greatest joy.
Even just yesterday, it was a kid talking now. God is just working in his life and changing his life, and how he doesn't want to do drugs anymore, and how he wants to be an example to his brothers and sisters now. It's just, for those moments, you're like, this is why I do it. Understanding that this is what God called us to do, you know, to give our lives up, you know, for the sake of the gospel, because that's what Christ did. It truly gives me appreciation for what Jesus did for me, that he sacrificed everything, and now he calls me to do that same thing for others. It gives me a real insight to what the gospel is telling us to do, and the struggle that we fight with for the goal of others coming to know Christ. Understanding that this is what God called us to do, you know, to give our lives up for the sake of the gospel, because that's what Christ did.